Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Madiha Saghir from Department of Zoology, Bank Road Campus, University of Education, Lahore. So, students, today we're gonna talk about species concept. We have talked about the first three concepts in the first two parts of our lecture, that is the topological species concept, nominalistic, and that of the biological species concepts. Today, we will be discussing about the phenetic species concept, evolutionary species concept, and the last one is the phylogenetic species concept one by one. Another type of species concept is the phenetic species concept. So far we have discussed number one, topological species concept, that is also called the morphological essentialistic species concept. Then we talked about the nominalistic species concept. Then we talked about the biological species concept. Now it is the phenetic species concept. Phenetic species concept is also known as, like that of the topological species concept, it is also known as the morphological species concept, but it is the most advanced version and modern version of the morphological species concept or topological species concept. Let's read it and have the proper definition of this concept. Phenetic species concept defines a species as a set of organisms that look similar to each other and distinct from other sets. It makes the species on the basis of their similar structures, and those organisms that have the more similar structures, more structures in common, that are grouped in the same species, and others that are different from that are grouped into other sets. Phenetic species concept is updated numerical form of earlier topological species concept. As I told you that this is the numerical modern version of the morphological species concept or the topological species concept or the topological species concept. Why does it call numerical? Because this kind of the concept takes the use the statistics, it measures and it records the similar characters, right? And it uses statistics, and it tells that how much two organisms have how much similarity in their characters and how much they are far from the other organisms on the basis of the dissimilarity in the characters. So it is the numerical form of the topological species concept. Last point is, in contrast to the phylogenetic principle, nothing needs to know about evolution in order for species to be classified phenetically. If we compare this concept with the phylogenetic principle, we don't need to order the species, we don't need to know about their evolution, that how they evolved, from which ancestor they got evolved. We just classify the species phenetically, means that we just classify the species on the degree of the similarity in their characteristics, right? Okay, the phenetic concept measures as many characters as possible in as many organisms as possible. So it measures it takes as many organisms that it could take, and it measures almost all the characters, all the similarity in the characters, and then it groups the organisms on the basis of the similarity, and then recognize phenetic clusters by multivariate statistics. Once they take the large number of organisms and they study their characteristics, they compare their characteristics, then they use the multivariate statistics. Multivariate statistics means that they use the different variables at the same time. They can calculate or measure the different characters at the same time of different organisms. They use modern statistical techniques that include, they don't it's not like the manual method that you have taken just a single character and you are observing just a single character. For example, you are observing the skin structure of the two or more organisms. It's not like that. If it's take multivariates multivariables, it takes as many characters. It at the same time it could compare the skin structure, it could compare the morphological structures, suppose cranium structure, the tail structure of different organisms. So that's why it is that's why we call that the phenetic clusters by the multivariate statistics. So it is very advanced method or advanced concept of the species that use the morphological characteristics, but with the modern techniques, with the statics, with the it measures and records the characteristics. These clusters approximate to a level of similarity sufficient to be called a species. These clusters of the similarity should be enough that they call the similar. It's not like that we are having, suppose we are having the 10 individuals, and we amongst that 10 individuals only 1 to 2 characters are similar, so we can't group that 10 individuals into the same species. They have the maximum approximate number of similarity in them. That's why that they could be in the could be kept in the same group of the species. Fossil species based on phenetic species concept. Like this was one of the drawback in the biological species concept, that we cannot implement or we cannot specify the species level of the fossils, right? Because we don't know that the fossils we have gotten today of the extinct animals, did they that extinct animals interbred at that time when they were living? No, we don't know. Fossilized species have been classified on the basis of the phenetic species concept. The phenetic method groups species according to their observable phenetic attributes. Attributes mean the traits, the characters. If two species look more like each other than either does to any other species, they will be grouped together. Alright, so this was all about the phenetic species concept. You have learned about the phenetic classification system as well. So it is the same, that it takes the characteristics in common rather than the evolutionary relationship. Okay, now the another concept of the species is the evolutionary species concept. Now, what is evolutionary species concept? It's like we could say that it involves the evolution or change over time. Previously, 4 categories or 4 concepts which we have studied about just to define the species, they did not say anything, they did not involve the evolution, right? But this is the first concept, evolutionary species concept, that prefer or that incorporate the changes that have been happened in an organism with the passage of the time instead of the static features. Previously, all the concepts took just the static features of the individuals to group them into the species. Static means the same features that do not change. But this is the first concept that work on the evolution as well. So let's read it. According to this concept, species is a group of animals which arise from changes with passage of time and have potential to reproduce for fertile offspring. Species is what? It is a group of those organisms that have been descendant and that have been descendant from the parents, but during their descent they got changes in their structures, and because of the evolution and because of the natural selection, but still after changes they still have the potential to reproduce together and could have the fertile offspring. Such groups can be categorized in a same kind of the species. This concept was developed by Simpson in 1961 in order to include asexual organisms and extinct species, whom the biological species concept could not be applied to. As we know that biological species concept could be applied only to sexually reproducing species as well as the extinct and living species. So that concept couldn't be applied to the asexual reproducing organism, but evolutionary species concept applied to the asexual organisms, as well as it could be applied to the extinct organisms that are no more in this world. So here for the first time was the species concept incorporating the change over time. This is the first time that Simpson in 1961 proposed a concept that incorporate the evolution element of the evolution rather than the static features, and which allowed consideration of changes resulting from competition and interaction among species. You know that those changes have been occurred. Why? Because of the environment, because of the selection pressure, because of the interaction between the different species, and different species compete for the resources. Even the individuals of the same species compete for the resources, available resources. When they compete for the resources, those that are fit and that succeeded, that live and that will reproduce. So changes occurred because of the competition and interaction. That competition interaction could be among the species, or it could be the individuals of the same species. Simpson was the first to give the idea of the evolutionary species concept, but Weil in 1978 provide the revised version of this concept, and he gave the more precise definition of the evolutionary species concept. So let's have his definition of this concept. An evolutionary species is a single lineage of ancestor descendant populations of organisms which maintains its identity from other such lineages and which has its own evolutionary tendencies and historical fate. So according to Weil, what is the evolutionary species? Evolutionary species represents a single lineage of ancestor and descendant. Lineage means that a single series of ancestors and then their descendants. Organisms that are belonging to the same single series of from ancestors till descendants are grouped into the same species. And definitely this single lineage maintain its identity, and it is different from the other such lineages. The second lineage that is being projecting out of the evolutionary tree is shows the different species, right, and which has its own evolutionary tendencies and historical values. Every evolutionary tendencies means that every individual or every species at its ancestral time, in ancient times before evolution, suppose they have the different tendencies or different capacities to evolve in different way. Every species evolves in different ways. So evolutionary species is only the species that is present in the single evolutionary lineage, and evolutionary lineage is what a line of ancestor and series of ancestors and the descendants. All right. Okay, like all other concepts of species, different definition of species, this evolutionary species concept has also many shortcomings. First, as it is based on the evolutionary lineage, so evolutionary lineage is not testable. We can't test. We don't know that the descendants today are present. Are they really belong to the same ancestor or not? Right. So what we do, we study the fossils, and then from the studying fossils we make the evolutionary lineages. But if there are the gaps present in the fossils, then they could be problematic. Secondly, evolution is a process that is a very gradual, very slow process. So one cannot see the evolution in his life, right? So there is also, this is also a problem in applying this concept of the species. It may go wrong. There is a chance of error, right? So let's read it. The problem in this evolutionary concept arose when gaps in the fossil record impose partiality limits between species, especially those which experiencing regular size and shape evolution. If we are working on a species, on individuals that have the regular or uniform change occurring in the size and shape during the evolution, then if their fossils are somewhat, there is a gap in the fossils, we don't have the proper fossils present of all the time, we don't have the proper record of the fossils, then there is a chance of error that how could we conclude that this organism we have today really belongs to that particular ancestor, so that particular species. And second, because speciation is an evolutionary process, you know that what speciation is. Speciation is the formation of the new species. So formation of the new species, definitely this takes place through evolution, through change. So defining the stage when a group of organisms have reached complete speciation is difficult. We don't know that we have the organisms today, they are going through the process of speciation, or they have reached the to the process of the speciation, that they have speciated, or they are still going through the process of speciation. Either speciation is completed today, or no, it is still going on, right? So these two are very important and drawbacks or disadvantages or problems of this concept of the species. Okay, the last one is the phylogenetic species concept. Well, there are a lot of species concept, as I told you in the start of the lecture, that there are many species concept, more than 22 species concept available. But today here we are ending up on we have focused 6 major concepts that got the fame. So this is the last one, the phylogenetic species concept. Phylogenetic species concept actually believes in the cladistics relationship of the organisms. So if you come to the proper definition of the phylogenetic species, then it shows the ancestral descendant relationship rather than the reproductive isolation. It does not show any reproductive isolation within the individuals of the species. It defines the species, or categorize or classify the organisms to up to the species level according to the ancestral descendant relationship, cladistic relationship. As in case of the evolutionary species concept shows that the species is a collection of the individuals that follow the same single lineages of interbreeding organisms. And this evolutionary lineage is different from the other lineages in terms of the reproductive isolation. But here in phylogenetic species concept, it just show the cladistic relationship between the ancestors and descendants, and between the individuals to categorize the individuals in the species category. Let's read it now. Defining taxa strictly according to cladistics relationship has led to the development of phylogenetic species concept. Phylogenetic species defined by the ancestral descendant relationship rather than by reproductive isolation. Crackraft in 1983 proposed that a phylogenetic species is a monophyletic group composed of smallest diagnosable clusters of individual organisms within which there is parental pattern of ancestry and descendant. Monophyletic group, you know that monophyletic group is a group that shows the single ancestor with all its descendants. And diagnosable clusters means that this what I have also given in the next. Okay, diagnosable clusters. Diagnosable, you know that diagnosis mean to identify something, and clusters mean the collection group, right? So diagnosable clusters, the term which we have used in the definition of this concept is that the clusters mean collection. So a member to be a part of the particular species on the basis of the phylogenetic species concept, it should have a collection of characteristics that help that member to be identified as a particular species. It should not have one to two characters. One to two characters won't help that member to be the part of the particular species. So member should have enough characteristics that help that relate it to the particular species on the basis of the phylogeny. Let's read it. Members of the species should share a combination of characteristics. There must be a combination of characteristics that other species lack. Right? So in this way, we could identify that it belongs to that particular species to which members this member has the similarity in the characteristics. To look for the unique features that define a phylogenetic species, paleontologists must perform systematic comparisons with other related fossils or living species. So, for the phylogenetic species concept, the paleontologist must perform the comparison between the living species and all the related fossils that have been present of the living species should be compared and should be studied, and in this way they could categorize members or individuals or into certain category of the species. Here I have given the difference. Here you could see that A, D, B. This is the lineage. Lineage is what? It is the ancestor descendant series, right? And what is the clade? As you know that the topic right now which we are talking about in this slide is the phylogenetic species concept, and it focuses on the cladistic relationship. Cladistic relationship shows the most recent ancestor of the organisms, right? So this is the clade and this is the lineage. Lineage show the series of ancestor and descendants during the course of evolution, but clade shows the most recent ancestor to all the descendants of that recent ancestor. Here B is the recent ancestor of these two groups, right? These two species. Okay, students, today we have talked about the three species concept, phenetic species concept, phylogenetic species concept, and evolutionary species concepts. So finally, we are done with our topic of the species concept. Take care of yourself and your surrounding one. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz.